I just wanted to kind of pick your brain because I'm not sure you've really been asked this. Is really from the learning perspective. Um, uh, like one of the things that I'm struggling with in terms of learning is there's skills, right? There's learning how to golf, how to do certain things that are very skill based. Then of course there's other things involved in learning in schools, like learning to be a critical thinker. You know, those are more abstract kind of things, and sometimes it's hard to equate the two. But I guess I'm just, you know, I'm trying to get from your perspective. What are some of the, you know, is learning to play golf simply about repetition and practice, or are there some real cognitive challenges, mental challenges that you know, are really aware of?
Well, I mean, I think that it just depends on what you mean by learning to play golf, because if you're just trying to, say, learn how to hit a putting stroke or how to hit a ball from a mat or from a driving range where it's all flat, then I think that, you know, repetition and a little bit of deliberate practice and thinking about what you're doing, what your body's doing, and internalizing and building an internal model for what your swing and your putt is, then that's basically all you would need. But golf is such a unique sport in that you never have the same shot twice. So what you do in practice situations has absolutely nothing to do with what you do in actual tournament situations. So I think that there's a lot of mental learning and the cognitive development that can go into learning how to deal with your own emotions and how to process and how to learn acceptance on the course. So it's kind of a combination. You know, I think that with the 10,000 hours for golf, it's a certain amount of, I would say, repetitive practice mixed with interleaving and all sorts of other different practice techniques that combined with some mental training for that side of it and being able to put up with the pressure of competition.
So when you're away from the golf course, are you thinking about it? And if so, what would be some of the kinds of things that you think about when you're actually not practicing?
Well, in the evenings, if we're just talking golf specific right now, in the evenings I do a lot of just kind of going over all the shots of the day. I guess that type of processing last thing at night. You know, I typically I'll play 9 or 18 holes every day at the end of my practice, and and then I'll just play every shot back out in my head, and kind of a way to start processing exactly what happened, and in a sense maybe talk myself into dreaming about it and being able to process it on a more unconscious level. And then in the morning we have what's called batting practice, which you go through, and it's basically telling yourself what your blessings are, what your achievements are, and then what your training needs to be. So it's the BAT, blessings, achievements, training. And so kind of on the way to the course, I go through that and think of different ways that I've been fortunate and different ways that I've been able to succeed. And then also the third thing is what I'm going to do in training that day to learn, and that day to you know, make myself a better golfer. So that's kind of what I do pre-training and then post-training. And then also post-training, I try to read inspirational books, whatever I find you know, at the moment that really gets me pumped up for the next day.
So okay, so you mentioned a specific kind of approach that you're taking. How did you come up with the plan in terms of, okay, and you can tell me a little bit about how you decided this is going to be one of my golf coaches, these are the kinds of people I need, and, you know, just developing the schema that you have now to move forward.
Well, you know, I'd never done anything like this, and for me, I didn't quite know what I was getting into. I had a good idea, and I knew eventually what I would need for this project. I knew I would need somebody to help me physically, somebody to help my swing, and then somebody as a mental coach. And then probably a nutritionist or somebody to kind of help me get my body on the right track, because I wasn't an athlete. I'd never been an athlete. I ran cross country, played some tennis up until high school, but I'd never really done anything. So I kind of had an idea of these are the types of people that I needed to be mentors and coaches. And first and foremost, I knew that I needed a swing coach. So that was the first person I went to, and I kind of explored around the area and found somebody who looked up for the challenge. There's so many different golf coaches in the world, but I needed somebody who thought a little bit differently and would be accepting of the idea that 10,000 hours in golf could push you to the highest levels. And so I found a good swing coach, and then through him, we started acquiring more of our base team. And at first, kind of consulted with a number of people all across the board, from neurologists to hypnotherapists and just anybody we could think of. We were consulting with them, and then slowly we've kind of built an inner circle. So now we have a mental coach who's kind of the director of training, a physical therapist, and a golf coach. And those are like my three core guys.
So how much do you, one of the things I think that I'm exploring as I'm learning how to play the guitar, for example, is, there's a lot of regiments that you can follow. Here's a book that you could use, or here's one guide. I'm finding myself, and again, because it's not at the same level, but that I'm kind of making up my own learning plan because I enjoy a certain thing to do. Now, I know you're probably trying to stick to, the regiments that's been laid out, but how much do you either find yourself wanting to or actually do sort of change the course of practice because, you're just interested in trying a different shot or trying something that maybe isn't part of the strict plan? Like, how much do you sway from that?
Well, a lot of it is kind of exploratory. There's certain things that I try to do, and there's certain tasks that I focus on and make sure that I accomplish. And, so say if I decide that, okay, I need to be able to hit 5 different clubs to this 100-yard flag and hit them all within 5 feet, then I'll stick with that until I accomplish that task. But there's not a strict regimen of every day I start and I putt and then I chip and then I do like that. So in some ways it's more exploratory, kind of how a baby learns. They'll just crawl around and touch all these different things and look at everything and just have this open-mindedness and the randomness of it. And in a way, I've kind of approached my training like that. I don't hit the same balls and the same clubs over and over. I might hit a 3-wood and then go and putt some and then chip and then go back and hit some 6-irons and just kind of keep it all mixed up. But every shot has a purpose, so I'm not just becoming an automaton, and I'm actually staying focused and making sure that I'm hitting my goals and progressing in the direction that I need to be.
Which is, the real thing that I'm noticing with all this is this whole idea of being mindful in whatever you're doing. So as you said before, that everything has a purpose. There's exploratory, but you're also, as you're exploring, you're also reflecting and making everything intentional. So I think that's a real common thread that I'm finding with all this, the kind of learning that we're exploring here.
Yeah, and it's really similar to just how a child would learn. If you give a kid a club and a couple golf balls or a guitar, they're just going to play around until they find something that works or is cool. And it's basically the same idea as we're all built different. We have, for golf purposes, we have different mechanical abilities. So if you look on tour, there's not 2 strokes or 2 swings that are exactly alike. So you really have to kind of find what works for you. And sometimes it looks goofy, but if you can do it 100 times in a row the exact same way, and that's just what works. So a large portion of what I do on a daily basis is just the exploratory work.
Yeah, it's interesting. Even when you talk about the tour, there's you hear particularly announcers will talk about the fact that sort of in the old days before there were coaches, there were much more unique swings because everybody was sort of learning on their own and came up with their own idea. You're starting to see more, whether it's Adam Scott compared to Tiger Woods, very similar swings. and oftentimes they're criticized for being too regimented. So trying to find the balance between, yeah, there's some fundamentals that are really important that you have. At the same time, you have to make it your own and play by, have this balance between the mechanics and the feel. So it sounds like you're kind of doing that built in, that you're allowing yourself to kind of have this feel as opposed to really a mechanical approach.
Yeah. Well, it is a mix of both. As I go for lessons and we talk about different ways for the swing and where we kind of want it to be, and we'll model it after different types of golfers. But then in between lessons during the week, I kind of develop what I'm supposed to be working on, but then figure out how that works for me. And I'm more of a fan of kind of the older school of golfers like Seve. You give him a 5-iron, he could do anything with it. And I think a lot of these newer swings, like you mentioned, they're too cookie cutter in a lot of ways. It gets rid of the creativity that's so necessary in golf.
So have you had any specific breakthrough or aha moments where you felt like, you've sort of moved from level 1 to level 2 or 3 or 4 or whatever?
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, those, you don't have them all the time, but you have just bizarre, random times. You have the aha moments, and there's no rhyme or reason. Sometimes you're having a great week, and then you keep on having more aha moments, and sometimes you haven't been able to do what you think you should be able to do for 2 weeks, but then something clicks, and the next week you're 5 times better than you've ever played. So I haven't found a formula for figuring out how to get those aha moments yet, but I just think that's exactly why time is needed, because over time you slowly figure out all these different pieces of the puzzle, and you build the whole picture there.
Okay, so let me just shift gears a bit. Obviously, I found out what you're doing through social media, just in terms of the way you're using your website, the way you're using videos and Twitter and Facebook. How is that? What role has that played in your own pursuits of learning, and then maybe even just as obviously to gain some notoriety, but just can maybe talk a little bit about how you're using that and how useful or non-useful that is for you.
Yeah, well, I think that social media is good for a project like this, and that it, in a way, it's a good vehicle for forcing you to keep going, because you spread the word and you tell everybody what you're doing, and it just makes it that much harder to back out if you're having a hard week or a month. So and then also there's just constant encouragement from people, and people are just 90% of the people are very supportive, and they're always out there emailing, and it just kind of they just rock and they keep you going. But I think that social media also can kind of get in the way, because I've seen some other people with kind of similar projects, and it seems like they're tweeting and posting on Facebook every 5 minutes, and I just kind of wonder if it's getting in the way of their training, because every time they think anything, they're actually putting it on Facebook or Twitter, and I don't know how much of that they're internalizing. So, but I think all in all, this is good. People have done projects like this and things like pursuits like this throughout history. It's just nowadays you can post it and you can kind of build a support community.
Well, and again, it goes back to before. It's about being intentional, right? I mean, if you're not intentional about how you're using it, that's when it gets to be, you're like you say, you're wondering, why are you doing this, right? So if there's intent behind it, I think it can be really useful.
Yeah.
So I know you talked a little bit about in the CNN interview about your kind of a little bit about your past, around the fact that you've got kind of a math or logical, seems like a bit of a disposition. Then you went into photography. Can you think about your previous learning experiences and how you're using those experiences in whatever ways to and adapting to your plan here?
Well, I don't know if there's any way to really adapt off the top of my head things that I've done in the past, but I think that one thing is from being in kind of a math-oriented program in high school and college, I learned that pretty much everything in life is a problem that has a solution. And now I approach golf the same way. If there is something that I need to do, and you have a stick and a ball, there is a way to do it. And there's a way that works for you, and like somebody else might come up, like in physics, you can have 4 different ways of working the same problem and getting the same answer, the right answer, but they're not necessarily the same ways of working it out. So I think that, in a sense, I've just been able to take that problem-solving skills from my past and adapt them to golf. And then as far as the photography goes, I think the only thing that I can really bring from my photography days and my creativity days is just the ability to shoot photos and share them with everybody else out there. But I guess maybe there's also just in the creative process, you learn a little bit more about the left side of the brain, and that can help in coming up with different shots close to the green and ways of seeing angles and seeing how the light falls on a green, and you can actually see the ripples, so you can see how it breaks, and so it's just paying attention to details.
Yeah, again, going back to that, I guess the idea of being mindful and oftentimes you can make those connections, which I think is really important. I'm trying to encourage my students to make connections between this experience. It may not be exactly lined up, but there's things that you've learned doing this. I mean, if everything is part of learning, then we should be able to kind of carry those lessons with us. So it sounds like you're doing that, which is interesting. I mean, I'll be curious to kind of see how you flesh some of those things out as you progress here. Just a couple more questions, and I'll let you go here. If you were going to give any advice to young people who are looking at, hey, I want to become the next greatest whatever, because I'm not that you're trying to become the next greatest golfer, but you are looking to achieve a high level here. What advice would you give people, or young people in particular?
Just be prepared. It's be ready to stick it out for the long haul, because it's there's so many other people that are trying to be the next best thing. So there's a lot of competition. It's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of long hours, and you need to have all the preparation down. So whether that's going through college and getting the right job, or saving up money, or whatever you need to do beforehand, you can't jump into things. You need to plan it out and be deliberate about it and be very prepared.
And how much would you say is, for you, motivation is the end of where you want to achieve, and how much of it is just enjoying the journey and the process as you go along?
I think there's a lot of motivation towards the end result, but in all honesty, I don't think I actually, on a day-to-day basis, I don't really think about what's going to happen X amount of years from now. I mean, for me, it's really the journey. It's the minor wins. It's the aha moments, and the realization that the more work I put into it, the more I'll get out of it. So there's a direct correlation between hard work and success. So I know, how much I sweat on Monday. That's how good I'll be on Friday. So so it's definitely the journey for me.
All right. Okay, I'm going to give you about 5 or 6 questions, just one-word answers here, and I'll let you go here. Who's your favorite golfer?
I think Seve would be.
Okay. Living?
I like Rory McIlroy's swing. I think he's got the best swing in golf.
What course would you hope to play someday?
I've been dreaming about playing Bandon Dunes since day one, and that's where I'm going tomorrow.
Ah, awesome. That's not far from you, right? That's
5-hour drive. So I actually just got the driver on my bag, and that's the celebration round.
Right. I saw you hit it the other day. It looked like you hit it pretty well. How far do you think you hit that?
That one, I think that my first one went about 225.
That's not bad. What's your favorite club in your bag?
I think it's always been the putter.
It's a good one to be good at, yeah.
There's nothing sick in a 40-foot putt.
Okay, so what's the best shot you've hit to date? Describe it.
To date?
To date, up to today. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, the best shot I've hit today is actually just a couple weeks ago. I had a horrible drive. I was 165 yards out with maybe a bunch of 90, 100 feet tall trees right in front of me. I had a 6-iron, a small green way up 165 yards away. So I knew I had to put the ball very far up in my stance to get it both 160 yards and to loft it over the trees. And I pretty much, it was like a miracle. I mean, I basically just closed my eyes and swang as hard as I could, and it popped it up, got over the trees, hit about 2 feet beyond the cup, and then spun back and ended up 3 inches away from the cup. So
Nice.
It was a little tap-in birdie, and it was, yeah, that was a golf shot. That's maybe my first golf shot ever.
Okay, last question. Who won this year's Masters?
The Masters was, I know this. Was it Oosthausen?
No.
Wait, no, he was.
Same country.
Yeah, it was. I can't even, I watched it. I can't even remember.
Schwartzel.
No, it was Ian.
No, Charles Schwartzel.
Charles Schwartz. That's right. Yeah, German guy, right?
No, he's South African.
Oh, he's a South African.
Yeah, he is. Anyways. All right. Hey, I appreciate your time, Dan. This was good for me, and I'm going to share it with my students, and I'll put it on my blog. I'll send you a link when I've got it up there. So I thank you for your time.
Yeah, anytime. Thanks for finding me, and it was great chatting.
All the best. And I'm going to donate to your plan, so just go on PayPal and donate a little bit.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, but do what you don't have to. It's,
I know I don't, but I appreciate the time, and I think it's awesome what you're doing. And again, even just sharing that process, I think is really, there's lessons there beyond just golf and whatever. And that's the kind of thing that I think for anybody that's interested in learning, it's a good project to look at. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, definitely. I'd like to hear more about your 100-hour studies and see what people learn from them. I'm basically doing 100 of those back to back.
That's right. That's right. Well, we're enjoying the process. So have a good evening. Take care.
Yeah, you too. Have a good one.
All right. Bye.
Bye.